Hello, everybody, and welcome to the last official video of our visual scripting platformer. In this video, we'll be covering the main menu. So we'll be setting up a few different things. In our main menu, we'll first need some buttons for each of our levels. We have buttons labeled 1 through 4, and each one of them correspond to the 4 levels in our game. So we'll want the player to be able to click on these buttons and go to those levels. If they haven't unlocked these levels already, then these levels need to be locked and these buttons need to be inactive or unable to be pushed. We also have a new game menu or new game button and a quit button, and we'll also be adding functionality to those as well. So as we move through the levels, we'll unlock them in our main menu. And so those will be available when we go to our main menu to click on. If we hit the new menu button or new game button, we only want level 1 to be unlocked, and we want to lock levels 2, 3, and 4 and anything further down the line. So to get started, I will share my screen and we will jump right in. So I am in level 1 over here, but to get my menu created and set up, I need to go to my menu scene. So I will go to my scenes and click on menu. And here's our beautiful menu. Now, you might not see anything at first. I'm going to zoom out because we're actually in our scene view. And I'm going to click on my canvas in my hierarchy and just hit F in my scene view, or hit F with my cursor in my scene view. And that should focus in on my menu. I'll hit F a few more times to kind of zoom in, zoom out. I just want to get a good view. There we go. So I have my 1, 2, 3, and 4 buttons over here. I can click on these. There we go. I just kind of click over to the side of it. It's kind of hard to grab it. There's a lot of stuff in here. If I start clicking in here, though, you'll see that I'm opening up these sections of our hierarchy. Now, for each one of these 4 buttons, if you look in the hierarchy, we'll see that they are blue. What that means is these are all prefabs. So these are prefabs of the same exact object. They're just copy and pasted with different numbers on each one. So this makes planning our main menu a little bit easier. So what we'll do is we'll actually jump into our prefabs folder in our assets, and we'll look for something called menu level button. So this is effectively, if I drag and drop this into our scene, this is pretty much our buttons that we're using here, or the prefab for it. I'm going to delete that. So what I'm going to do is in my prefabs folder in my project panel, I'm going to select my menu level button. And in the inspector, I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom. And what I'm going to do is actually add a new script here. I'm going to hit add component. I'm going to choose a script machine. And notice how this creates variables for me, just like any other script that we add. So for this script, we're going to create a new macro. So I'm going to hit the new button. I'm going to save it in my macros folder. And we're going to call this menu level button. Keep it simple. Okay. So now I'm going to hit edit graph. And one more thing that I'm going to do, and I can do this, I've mentioned this before, but I can do this in my inspector or in the actual script graph window, but I'm going to add a variable here. And this is going to be called scene with a capital S. It is going to be of type string. And for this value, I'm just going to put in level 1. Now, remember that I am in the prefab right now. So any additions, any changes, any alterations I make to this game object will be applied to every instance of this game object. In this case, this means that it's going to be applied to level 1, level 2, level 3, and the level 4 buttons. Okay, so back in my script graph, I need to add a few different things here. I'm going to go full screen. Again, remember that I'm in my prefab. I'm going to delete my on start and on update. Actually, I'm going to keep my on update. I'll use that a little bit later. I'm just going to set it to the side. First off, what I want to do is be able to load a level whenever I press these buttons. So I'm going to right click, add a node, and I'll look for on button click. There you go. This should look pretty familiar from the pause menu. I'm going to keep it to this button, whatever this button is. And I'm going to use Scene Manager to load a scene. I'm just going to use the scene name. I'm just looking for the node with scene name at the end. And for the scene name, because this is a prefab object and my scene will change depending on which button this is, I'm not going to type in a scene name specifically. Instead, I'm going to get a variable, and this is going to be an object variable. And this is where I'll be loading in my scene variable. So remember, I have level 1 set as my scene right now, but when I go back into instances of this prefab, then I'll change that in my variables tab. Okay, so this little section is complete. I'm just going to call this load level. And this is going to effectively, whenever I click on whatever button it is, it's going to load whatever scene we have set to our variable for this button. Now, there's one more thing that I want to do in this script graph, and that is enable our buttons if they are unlocked. So remember, if our player makes it to level 2, then we have the unlocked variable for level 2. We save that as a variable. And remember, we did that during our level change sequence. So what we're going to be doing is looking to see if level X is unlocked, if we created a save variable for whenever the player entered level 2, level 3, and level 4. And if so, we want to make these buttons unlock so that the player can click on these buttons in the main menu. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with a get variable. And this is going to be a save or game object variable, excuse me. And this is going to be our scene. And we're going to send this to a string concat with 2 arguments. And our second argument is going to be a string literal. And it's going to be titled underscore capital U unlocked. So we're looking to match the string value or the value that we've determined in each level whenever we did the level change and said level 2 underscore unlocked. We're going to be checking for that. And if we have it, then we're going to set this button as interactable. So in our string concat, we're essentially taking our string value. In this case, it might be level 1, level 2, level 3, and we're checking it with the unlocked. And if it's true, or if we have those variables, so we're looking at has variable for saved. And then we're going to be getting a saved variable as well. So get variable and saved. You know, this might be a little confusing. And we're going to send these to an AND. So we're checking for 2 parameters. And if both of those parameters are met, then we're going to set our button as interactable. And it will be this button. Now we're going to do this. We're going to search for all of this every frame. So we're going to do this on update. And there we go. That should be it. So I'm going to partition this out, and we'll just call this enabled, enable if unlocked. Okay, so that should be it for our script graph. Now, one more thing I want to do in here is, now that I have this graph set up, if I go and click on each one of these individual buttons that are already in my scene, because remember, I was just working on a prefab. If I select my level 1 button and scroll down, you'll see that I have my script graph there and I have my variable scene. Now this is set to level 1, which is perfect because I want my level 1 button to connect to level 1. Now, if I go to level 2 and we look at our inspector, I have the same graph, but I have level 1 selected here for my scene variable. So I'm going to change that to level 2. And I'm going to do that with each one of my other buttons. So level 3, I'm going to change that from the level 1 that I made in my prefab to level 3. And the same thing with level 4. Here we go. So I've gone through each one of these individual buttons and changed their variable. Now I'm not going to send any overrides, because if I apply an override, it's going to apply it to every instance of each one of these buttons. And I want each one of these buttons to be specifically different with their variables. that guarantees that they send the player to the right level. So if you click on level 4 and it just sends you to level 1, then that's a problem. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to want to do is work on my new game button, because I've gotten all of my level buttons set up here. So for my new game button, what I'm going to do is I can either click on it in the hierarchy or click on it in the scene. And I'm going to scroll down in my inspector. I'm going to add a component, and it's going to be a script machine. And in this case, we're just going to embed this graph because this graph is only going to exist in one place, and it's going to be in this new game button. So I don't need to create a macro for it. So again, under source, where it says graph, I'm going to choose embed. Okay, so now I will open up this graph, and let's just talk about what we want our new game button to do. Let's say our player has unlocked level 3, and they're giving the controller to a friend, and the friend wants to start from level 1. Well, you can click on the level 1 button, or you can click the new game button, and it will turn level 2 and level 3 as inactive. So new game should turn every single level inactive, or every single level button inactive, except for level 1. Remember, that's important. If we hit new game and we can't play level 1 or any other levels, then we don't have a game at all. So the first thing we want to do in our new game graph, and I'll open up my script graph full screen. The first thing we want to do, well, first thing I want to do is delete the on start and on update. And I want to make sure that level 1 is always going to be unlocked, even when I hit this button. So I'm going to choose for my first node, on button click, and it's going to be this button, because remember, this is my new game button. And I'm going to set a variable, and it's going to be a saved variable. And this is going to be level 1 unlocked. And I'm going to set this as a Boolean value, a Boolean literal as check. Now, to make sure that this works, I have to go into my Blackboard or my variables. And in this case, I'm going to have to do it in Blackboard in my script editor, because I have to go to a saved data point. So I'm going to add a saved variable, and this will persist even if the game is closed and turned off entirely and open back up in 2 weeks. This is going to be a saved variable. So I'm going to do initial. So I'm initializing this saved variable at the start of my game. And we're just going to call this, I believe, level 1 unlocked. Yeah. Level 1 underscore unlocked. Make sure you spell it the exact same way that we have here. And hit plus. And this is going to be a Boolean value, and it's going to be checked. This guarantees that our level 1 is always going to be unlocked, even when we hit our new game button. So this is all we need for this section. I'm just going to call this unlock level 1. Oops. There we go. Okay, so now we need one more section. Now, unlike level 1, if we click on our new game button, we want to lock levels 2, 3, and 4, or any sequential levels down the road. So to do that, I'm going to use a for loop. I'm just going to type in for loop. And what a for loop does is it checks a sequence of items, and we can determine which items we want it to check. And it performs an action for each item in that list. So in this case, our first item is going to be our second list item, and our last is going to be 5. Now, in this case, the for loop is an exclusive range, or at least this last item is exclusive, which means that we're not, instead of going up to the number 5 is our cap. So we're going up to one item below this. So we're actually going from 2 to 4 in this case for our for loop. What that means is I'm checking levels 2, level 3, and level 4, and then the last stop is 5. But because it is exclusive and not inclusive, we're not including a 5th step. We're just going to number 4. Okay, so from the body, we're going to be running to a set variable node, and we're going to be setting a saved variable. We are going to be checking this variable as a bool, because remember, these are going to be our check or uncheck levels, we're just seeing if they're active or not. And then for our string or the name of this object, we're going to do another concat. And I'm going to take 3 arguments this time. So argument 0, 1, and 2. And this is going to get a little kind of messy. For my index in my for loop, I'm going to plug this into argument 1. So this will be essentially the number of the level. For argument 0, we're just going to call this a string. And we're just going to title this level. So we're saying level, whatever number in here, level 2, level 3, level 4. And we're going to do another string and call it underscore unlocked. So we're taking our saved data, and so this is all we need for this section. So we're doing a for loop for each level between level 2 and 4. We're checking, this is the index, so we're checking level 1 or level 2 unlocked is now set to untrue. So we're effectively locking all of these levels after level 1. So we'll just call this lock levels above 1. Now, if you go through here and create more levels in your game, then you'll want to change this last step to, let's say you created 8 levels. You'll actually want to do this to 9, right? But for now, since we only have 4 levels, I'm going to go my last is 5 because it has an exclusive value. And we'll go through 2 and 4. Okay, so then the last thing we want to set up is our quit button. So I can select this in my scene view over here just by clicking on the button, or I can go to my hierarchy and select quit button. I'm going to scroll down in my inspector. I'm going to add a component, and this is going to be a script machine. And I'm going to embed this as well. And what I'm going to do is this will look pretty familiar and identical. Let's see, I'm just going to full screen this. I'm going to delete my on start on update. This will look identical to the quit button in our pause menu. So I'm going to right click, look for an on button, click, and attach that to a application quit. So I'm just type in quit and application quit. And that's all we need for our quit menu or quit button. So now I'm going to hit Control S to save, and let's play and see if this works. Okay, so we have a menu with all 4 buttons active. Let's see if I hit on 3. Will it take me to level 3? It looks like it does. All right, I'm going to hit escape, and let's go to our menu and make sure this works. All right, we are sent to our menu. Now let's hit new game. All right, it looks like it closes out everything from level 2 to level 4. If I hit level 1, let's see if I can run through and unlock all my levels. Let's just check to make sure that level 2 is unlocked. It is. So I can click 2. All right, let's click and make sure level 3 is unlocked. It is. All right, we can go to 3. And we'll go to 4. All right, and we go back to level 1. So let's go to escape and menu, and I have all 4 levels unlocked. I hit 4, it will take me to level 4. Let's go back to our menu and new game one more time. And now I can't click on any of these buttons. The quit button is not working because I am in the editor, but everything else is working. So that covers the menu, and that covers the basics of our platformer up to this point. So good luck with this. This is the final touches. I do have some other additional videos for kind of covering additional content onto this, but this is the kind of core of our visual scripting platformer tutorial. So congrats on making it this far.